Transparency and a no-nonsense attitude is something that I think is brutally undervalued when it comes to the gaming industry. And I'm not talking about from the part of the gamers, I'm talking about it from the part of like marketing departments all around. And transparency and a no-nonsense attitude is exactly what we got in yesterday's broadcast from Grinding Gear Games. Although I shouldn't really say that the broadcast was from Grinding Gear Games, because even though they were present in the podcast, even though a lot of new things were announced, they weren't actually the hosts, which is even weirder. They basically allowed two content creators from the community to host the event themselves, which shows a very deep level of integration within the community of their game. Now, obviously, I'm talking about the recent Path of Exile news that we received. There's a live stream here on the channel if you want to watch my reaction to everything that was spoken about, and I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of a summary of everything that was announced. So, starting things off, you're going to be seeing a better balance overall of the mapping experience. This means that baseline maps, we're talking before we even start crafting into those maps, they're just going to feel more rewarding overall, whether that's because there's more rare monsters, there's more chests, there's better balancing within those monsters so that they're not just going to be a one-shot fiasco, all of that stuff. Then on top of it, we're going to be seeing more maps with bosses. It was initially intended that 1 out of every 4 maps was going to be a map with a boss, but that wasn't really the case because apparently a lot of maps couldn't really spawn bosses, and therefore we ended up with less bosses than it was intended. And that, combined with the overall improvement in baseline maps, means that we're going to have less problems when it comes to Waystone sustain, which is definitely something that I suffered from. I had that problem. I know that other players had that problem as well. I mean, I still have that problem, and the developers were saying like, oh, this is because you guys die a lot. I don't die that much, and still I don't get nearly enough Waystone tablets to sustain. I have been able to sustain myself, struggling through every step of the way, but you know, it is what it is. We're also getting a new precursor tablet for bosses, which is really, really cool because killing bosses is actually one of my favorite activities. I'm not one of those guys that's running around in breaches because breaches don't really serve my build all too well. I'm playing a Totem Warrior, and can you do breaches Totem Warrior? Yeah, you can, but it's not the best. I think that Totem Warrior is actually better at rituals and expeditions and those types of things, or at least that's the way that my build is shaping out to be. I'm still kind of like a noob when it comes to this stuff, so take whatever I say here with a grain of salt. They also said that worse layout maps, you know, things like Augury, or I think that Seepage is another one. They were also saying Mire. I don't know all of the map layouts yet, but there are some maps that are a little bit more claustrophobic, a little bit more corridors, stuff like that. And they're saying that with some of the changes that they're making, maybe those will have a little bit better density, maybe those will be a little bit faster to go through. So some builds might actually prefer that, which I think is better than just straight out removing those and make every map be kind of like, I don't know, a savanna or beach spit. Is it beach spit? What's it called? Or sand spit, whatever it is. You know, I don't want every single map to just be one big wide open area. So I do go into Augury and go into all those places. It just kind of sucks when you have like Breach on there or something, but they've said that they're changing the way that some of these maps work, and they should feel better overall, which is cool. And for some builds, they might even be a little bit more desirable. We shall see. Then another really big problem was addressed as well, which is we are getting 4 new tower types, which was a big complaint from a lot of people in the community. Even Rax mentioned that like he was going into towers with tier 1 maps and he just like rushes through, turns on the tower, leaves. I mean, personally, I've been using higher level maps on towers because I don't know, I just feel like I should do it. So I go in there with high level maps, get my crap beat up, but I haven't did I lose a couple of times? I think I've lost like 1 or 2 towers. I mean, lost as in I died, had to go back in, whatever. But overall, I've been doing towers with high tier maps as well. That's probably one of the reasons why I'm also suffering from sustain issues, but it is what it is. We're getting 4 new tower types: Alpine Ridge, Sinking Spire, Bluff, Mesa, and they've also redone the Lost Towers map so that it's not just a bunch of corridors with a room where you can't see anything into. So they're saying that they're fixing that so that it feels a little bit better. So we'll see how that pans out. There's also going to be a little bit more love shown to strong boxes, which is something that a lot of the veterans in the game, they're saying it's in a pretty bad place. I still open them. I'm a complete noob. I don't really care. I see big box and I'm like, oh, let's open up the big box, see what's in there. But to be completely honest, yeah, they're very usually, I know that I'm not going to get anything good from them. I don't think I've ever gotten anything good from a strong box, which is kind of like disappointing. We're also going to be getting less clutter on maps, which is going to make things a little bit easier to see in terms of, you dying to things that you can't really see. They also did something with certain on-death effects. I don't think they're going to be as prevalent or something like that. Basically, there's going to be a lot less cheaper ways to get you killed on maps, which is good. Volatile plants are also going to be easier to see. They're going to be fixing some terrain collision issues that currently exist in some of the layouts. They increased the zoom out on Atlas, so you can zoom out a whole lot more. There's going to be better map loading times, and this one is massive. Like, loading times in maps is miserable. A lot of times I'm like, bro, I remember during the campaign, I would thinking, oh man, I need to check what are the optional objectives for this map. And then I would be dreading open the map because like, oh, I'm going to be sitting here looking at those gears turning, grinding the gears of my brain, bro. Like, but so those are going to be improved, which is absolutely fantastic. The biome type is going to be shown, which is important in particular for one of the nodes, which is actually one of the nodes that I thought was one of the most important nodes in the Atlas, even before I understood exactly all of the nodes in the Atlas. I was like, this one is important because it makes things more deterministic. And you need to know the biome types. Now it's going to be shown in the map itself when you hover over the map, which is fan-friggin-tastic. There's going to be overall improvements to all of the league mechanics, even if they said they're going to be reduced. Did they say that they were considering reducing the number of spawns in Breach? Because right now in Breach, you know, the game isn't even able to generate as many things as it's trying to, and that's like a load of errors that they're actually getting on the server side. But they didn't. I don't think they actually mentioned anything for Breach, but in terms of Delirium, you should be expecting more simulacrums. They said about 20%. They also said there's a bug in Delirium where certain monsters weren't spawning. That's going to be fixed. In terms of rituals, there's going to be 60% more omens in the rewards. I don't even know what omens are for because, you know, I've done a bunch of rituals, never seen an omen there, so whatever. Expedition is going to have better rarity rewards in the shop. So the items that you're going to be buying from Expedition currency, those are going to be a little bit better. But they say that this particular league mechanic still needs more substantial changes, which I'm happy to hear because Expedition might actually be the mechanic that I like doing the most. I really like Expeditions. I also like rituals, but rituals also don't feel that rewarding most of the time for me anyway, so whatever. They also talked about pinnacle content. So citadels are now going to be spawning a little bit closer to your spawn zone in the Atlas. And there's this effect that allows you to see the citadels from outside the fog of war a little bit easier, makes citadels easier to find. So overall, if you've been struggling finding citadels like a lot of people have, this should be fixed with the patch that is coming this week. There's also a little bit of tuning in terms of the Pinnacle boss. Right now, they're only doing this for the Arbiter of Ash, but you're going to be able to use all 6 portals in the first difficulty for the Arbiter of Ash, which is a massive improvement because before you would be collecting the keys and then you would eventually go there, you had one try, oh, you mess it up, well, that's too bad. I actually like that more because that way you actually get to fail to the mechanics a couple of times so that you actually get to learn how things work. And I'm happy that they're doing it that way. In higher difficulties, though, you're still going to be, they're going to reduce the amount of portals that you have, but for the lower difficulties, you'll have 6 portals. So by the time you get to the higher difficulties, you should know the mechanics better, so you shouldn't need as many portals. And the reason why they haven't done that for the other bosses is because there's more mechanics involved, like the breach boss. Apparently that you'd be able to do the breach again, and that would just give players a much better reward loop to go through things. So, but the intent is that all of the Pinnacle bosses, you get like your first 6 attempts for the first time that you're killing it, and then as you go higher and higher in the difficulties, the attempts begin dwindling down, which in my opinion is good. This is one of the things that I have said. I do think that for endgame bosses, you should have more attempts to do them, especially because I personally want to go in there completely blind without actually knowing the mechanics, even though because I consume content on the internet, I already know some of the mechanics of the Arbiter of Ash, but it is what it is. They're also going to be nerfing the final boss of the Faradun Citadel, which I don't know exactly which Citadel that is, but it is the one that features the second act's final boss, because apparently that boss was killing players way more than any of the other bosses in the Citadels, so that one's getting a little bit of a nerf to be more in line with the difficulty of the other bosses. They're improving the uniques, although the examples that they've shown, I was looking at the examples and I'm like, yeah, these are better, but is this going to be an item that I would use in an end game character? In most situations, no. At least it doesn't feel that way. But at the same time, again, I'm a bit of a noob when it comes to that stuff, so maybe I'm missing some special interaction with some stat or something like that, which these are things that are going to be coming with time. Now, they've also said they're going to be improving the mod weightings on higher levels. So certain mobs were straight up not showing, like attack speed on crossbows and life on rings. We're talking about a higher tier version of these items, with higher rarities, higher map levels, all of that stuff. Eventually, these items would straight up not have some of these affixes rolling, and so they're going to be fixing that. And they're also basically that should have the overall net effect that rare loot is just going to feel better, which is good. We're also going to be able to overwrite runes. Thank God for that one, dude, because it was so frustrating to not be able to overwrite runes, because I actually have been running around with a shield that has 2 sockets on it, and I ain't got nothing on those sockets because I'm thinking, okay, if I need to replace a piece of gear, these 2 sockets are going to be how I'm going to be compensating for whatever resistance I'm going to lose. So I've just been running around with a shield with 2 open sockets, even though I have tons and tons of runes. So being able to override runes, that is a big win. I think that was important. There's going to be adjustments to monsters and bosses to just make things feel a little bit better. They're still balancing out that endgame experience. Consoles are going to be getting item filters. These are going to be accessible through the Path of Exile website. It's going to be on the Path of Exile 1 website for now, just so that they can roll out that feature a little bit faster. But finally, because I know that this is something that people on console were asking quite a lot, there's going to be a bit of a armor buff as well as scavenged plating. This was very much needed, but I want to talk a little bit more about this one a little bit further in the video. And right now, there's no changes to Ascendancy in terms of allowing players to respec their Ascendancies, but at the same time, Mark also mentioned that this is not a hill that he is going to be dying on. So, and anyways, these were the things that were announced. However, this was an event that, like I said, was hosted by 2 content creators. In this case, it was DM, who we recently just did a podcast with, by the way. You guys can check that out in the channel. But yeah, it was Darth Microtransactions and Ghazi, and they were the ones actually hosting the event as part of their podcast, Tavern Talk, which was really, really cool, by the way. Shout out to them. There's going to be links to the podcast and all of that stuff in the description. If you happen to have missed the broadcast, I will have links down below that you guys can go watch all of that stuff. But I think that they did a fantastic job, hosting questions from the community, important questions, and holding the devs up to task. And at the same time, massive shout out to the devs, because like I said at the start of this, right? I'm a newcomer when it comes to the Path of Exile community, and therefore I don't know exactly what to expect. I liked some of their initial broadcasts and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, this looks like good. I like what these guys are saying on their interviews and all of that stuff. But this one really cemented to me that Path of Exile 2 is a game that has a very strong future ahead of it, because this team isn't playing around. These guys are not scared to dive deep into all of the things, even when they're not exactly ready to talk about them. They're like, yeah, we don't know about this one. We don't have all the data just yet. We're trying to figure it out. But it was just refreshing to see developers up for just having a normal conversation with their community without really, being super protective or like, oh, we gotta keep this thing a secret and that thing. So it was just super refreshing to see. I was very surprised, because this is not the norm when it comes to the gaming industry. Now, there are developers that do have that kind of openness with their community, absolutely, but it's very rare. And to see Grinding Gear Games just be like, yeah, we're gonna announce this through the Tavern Talk podcast. They're gonna be the ones, playing the video for us, and then we're gonna go in there, have a conversation with Ghazi and Darth, and they went overtime and all of that stuff. It was just really, really cool, and you can tell that these are 2 dudes that play their own game, okay? They are very knowledgeable about the game that they're talking about, which is, again, not always the case, and they don't mince words. There's no well, we're not really ready to talk about this. I mean, of course, there are some things there, but most of the questions, these were all questions that developers were willing to engage in. And again, just not mince words. It's just so important, because usually you end up with a lot of conversations where people don't really say what they mean, or they don't really say a whole lot of stuff. And there was a lot of useful information coming out of that. And I'm going to be talking about some of that right now. So, first things first, there's going to be a much bigger patch coming soon. And this is actually kind of scary for me because February is one hell of a crowded month, as you guys are no doubt aware. And it seems to me like we might be getting a economy reset patch during February, which is going to really suck. Now, right now we're going to be getting a patch that's going to be fixing a lot of the things that I was talking about, which these are things that are just going to greatly improve the overall player experience without necessarily nerfing anything, which, to be honest, I kind of expected them to just bring in the nerf hammer and beat the crap out of some of those top performing builds. But developers are like, you know what, it's early access, it's whatever. So they're not slamming those just yet, but I do believe they will on the big balance patch that is also going to bring with an economy reset. And some people that maybe have jumped into Path of Exile too because they watched some of my videos, they might be wondering, what the hell is an economy reset? What the hell is going on? Are they going to wipe my character? And my theory, because I don't know all of these things, but my theory is that they're going to launch like either a new league mechanic or maybe a new class or something like that. And with that, they're probably going to launch a new league in early access. And whenever there's a new league in Path of Exile, it essentially means you'll want to make a new character to take advantage of the new league mechanic, and that's what they mean by an economy reset, I think. And so that's going to be good because right now the economy is kind of like in shambles with the rarity situation and the situation of people duping Temporalis by using the exploit of refreshing like some instance, the final instance of the Trial of the Secamus or whatever, and they were able to just like keep it's not really a dupe, but they would keep generating this item and they flooded the market with this Temporalis item, and that just like destroyed the economy. But devs are like, we're just gonna keep things rolling until eventually they're gonna reset the economy. So it is what it is. But I'm super excited about that bigger patch that's gonna be coming down the pike. Now, a couple of things here. They did talk about rarity, and one of the things that I'm not particularly happy with, and I know that a lot of people have been telling me, Rurikhan, there's videos that are saying that rarity is not as big of a deal as it is, and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, look, I don't agree, okay? I straight up don't agree. My experience tells me otherwise, and by otherwise, I mean brutally otherwise. Like, just having rarity in my warrior has been, it's night and day. It's straight up night and day, just in terms of the sheer amount of currency that I'm able to get. And that was something that was reported by pretty much every other content creator that plays this game. And now you can say that, oh, but there's this test that shows it's not that big of a deal. And I know that there was a video that we did watch that said that, like, oh, the most important thing is speed clearing breaches. And it's like, yeah, sure, but you're not doing breaches 24/7. At least I'm not doing breaches 24/7. I guess if you're doing breaches 24/7, you just get your clear speed, it'll be even better. But like I said, my build isn't even that good for breaches. So if all we're taking into consideration is breaches, what about all the other content? That just doesn't matter. So, there's a lot to be discussed when it comes to the whole rarity situation. One of the things that I wasn't happy with was developers were very comfortable just being like, yeah, rarity now affects currency. Because, again, that to me is not really a choice that you're making. Your choice is like, do I want to get currency or do I not want to get currency? You're not really making a choice between, oh, I'm choosing between dealing more damage and surviving more and magic funds. Like, no, you're choosing between you want to get currency or do you not want to get currency? And that's been my experience so far. So that's kind of how I feel when it comes to rarity, but I've already talked about that a million times over. Not going to get into it again all that much. One of the things developers did say in the interview that had me a little bit concerned was that they expressed an interest in making a more structured quest line for Endgame. So right now when you get to maps, essentially what you get is like quests that say, do 10 tier 5 maps, and then after that you get do 10 tier 6 maps, and after that you get like do 8 tier 7s, or I don't know if it's still 10 tier 7s, but whatever. That's your objective that is given to you. And they expressed an interest in like, oh, we want to maybe tell players go do a breach map, go do a ritual map, go do this thing. And I'm gonna be real, that needs to be handled really, really well, because me personally, I much prefer the way that things are now. As in, I don't want to be led by the nose and be forced, essentially, and I say forced with air quotes, to go do a ritual, oh, go do a breach, oh, go do this thing. And the reasoning is a lot of players saying, oh, that might be optional. But it's like, if it's going to give me Atlas points, it's not really optional, is it? So I really like the way that the experience is right now because they just give me a generic objective. And then I can go and make my own fun. Like I can go and decide, oh, I want to go over to these towers. I want to jack them up to juice all these maps in this area over here. And then I want to do some maps in this area. Then I'm going to move on and I'm going to do something else. So I like the generic nature of these objectives because it lets me jump into the end game and make my own fun. And so long as whatever objectives they give you in the end game are not something that you are forced to do, I think that'll be fine. But if all of a sudden I'm forced to like, no, you need to go do a breach map, and then after that you need to go kill a boss, and then after that you need to find a citadel. I mean, we already have the citadel quest right now, but I think you guys get my idea, right? I really enjoy the freedom that we have right now of just tackling whatever content we feel like tackling. And I'm kind of scared of them structuring that a little bit too much. But again, I don't have that much experience with it, so maybe it's not as big of a deal. The point that I'm saying is, like, I definitely don't want it to be a Diablo 4 season journey situation because I just don't like that. I get it. Some people like that type of stuff. I'm not here to criticize that. I'm just saying that I personally do not like it. I don't like it if the game just gives me, like, a list of chores and it's like, go do your chores and we'll give you a little bit rewards for your, for you to continue to progress. And it's like, I don't like that. Okay. I like the notion. It's like, here's this huge map, go on an adventure, do whatever the hell you want. I love that. Now, maces and armor, which is, the conversation about the warrior. Naturally, Darth Microtransaction really pushed into this, and he really drove the point home. It's like, warriors are in the worst possible place. And now, the developers were quick to point out, okay, but where is the problem? Is it like after the campaign? Is it more in the end game? And it seems like DM was kind of like, well, mid through like cool to into the end game or whatever it was. I forget the exact words. But to me, it's like, no, it's bad from the get-go because right now, at the beginning of the game, as a matter of fact, throughout most of it, it's just Mace Strike is your best skill. Like, I'm sorry, that's terrible. It's your auto attack. Come on, man. It's the auto attack. How's that like one of the most powerful skills for the warrior? I feel like that's kind of weird. Like, I want to do cool things. I want to do rolling slams. And I just feel that the overall investment in terms of animation commitment is way too high, which is something that they did discuss because, the whole attack speed problem and all of that stuff. I just don't think that the problem lies exclusively in the end game. I definitely felt that problem throughout the campaign as well. Like, especially if you play other classes and other weapons, you very quickly notice that, like, no, this is a problem. Like, there's a problem with maces. 100% there's a problem with maces, and 100% there's a problem with armor. Now, they said that they're currently buffing armor by like 15%, but at the same time, they're also doing a bunch of adjustments to mobs and bosses and all of that stuff that we talked about earlier, and even the overall mapping experience. So maybe there's like a compounded effect on this slight buff to armor and scavenged plating that just might feel really, really better. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, but it's just like when they said, oh, it's going to be an improvement of about 15%, I was like, brother, not even 200 feels like it's going to be enough for whatever the hell is happening with armor right now, and you're talking about 15%. But I do understand, like somebody pointed out in the comment section, and very rightfully so, you have to do small increments. You can't just, because once they give you something, if they're going to take it away, a lot of people in the community are going to be upset. I absolutely recognize that. So, it is what it is. Just I'm playing my warrior. It feels like the squishiest thing I've seen in my life right now. So, it's kind of rough. Now, following up from that, one of the things that I was super, super happy was, they brought up the whole thing about death penalty in Endgame. And this is something that I've seen a lot of people complain about. Everybody's like, oh, I want six portals. I want 6 portals in Endgame map. 6 portals. We got 6 portals just like in PoE 1. And the new guy over here is going to come in and say, I don't agree with that. I like the risk. I like knowing that at any given point is like, bam, gone. You died. Now, obviously, this is me thinking about this from a perfect situation, which is, you know, a situation where you're not just going to be getting one shot randomly and the defenses are properly evened out. So I'm looking at this in the future. I'm not looking at it right now. The way that it is right now, yeah, it kind of sucks. Most of the times that I've died, it's been like a random one shot. It's like, bam, oh, damn, I just got murked out of nowhere. It feels a little bit unfair. And I get that, but I'm looking at it in the future, right? I'm looking at it once they actually polish things up a little bit more. I think it's a good thing to have a death penalty. And I know that this is going to be one of those things that a lot of people are going to be disagreeing with me. They're going to be like, oh, here comes Rurikhan from friggin' Elden Ring and Dark Souls coming in here wanting us all to suffer. It's like, I don't want you all to suffer, but you know, I'm going to argue for the things that I like. And I like that when there are genuine stakes to when you go in. Like, and I've died a lot. I'm playing a warrior. I've died tons. I've lost tons of maps. Like, I've lost some really juiced up maps. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I lost that map. I've been juicing this area for so long and now the map is gone. It's like, I don't even care about the XP. Okay, I know that for a lot of people, the EXP is a problem. Maybe that's because I'm still only like level, I don't know, 84, 85, something like that. Maybe it's because I'm still low level. Maybe that's the reasoning why. And maybe once I get to 90, the EXP is going to be like, oh my God, this is way too much. But like right now, the EXP doesn't even bother me. What bothers me is the waste stone. Losing the waste stone. I'm like, no, my waste stone. I'm like 2 waste stones away from getting sent to friggin' tier 1. You know, that's the one thing that I'm really scared of, because that's how bad Waystone Sustain is for me, right? So yeah, I'm happy that what Jonathan said is like, no, we're not ready to give you 6 maps. They are sticking by their guns and they want there to be a penalty for dying. And I'm happy, and I think that there are other reasons, because like if you have 6 maps, right, what's stopping you from just making a complete glass cannon build? Just ignore every single defensive aspect of your skill tree or even of your stats and just go in there with something that just deletes everything. And if you die, it's like, oh well, died once, go in again, keep going, right? I think that there needs to be value to the defensive portion of the passive tree and defensive traits in your gear. And therefore, that is why I like the fact that there's actual punishment for when you lose a map. You lose your waystone, you lose the modifiers, you lose the EXP. I like this, but that's a personal opinion. You guys are free to disagree, and I completely understand why you would disagree, okay? I'm not the one designing the game. I'm just saying that in this case, I'm happy that the developer's vision seems to be aligned with my own personal taste. But other than that, like I said, I'm super happy about the future for Path of Exile 2. I can't wait to continue playing the game. As a matter of fact, the hardest thing for me nowadays is like pulling myself away from the game to go and make these videos, because I'm like, bro, I don't want to make these videos, and I gotta go run maps, bro. I gotta make my warrior better. I gotta find some HP pieces, because right now I'm like at 2200 HP. It's pathetic. I'm doing like tier 14s now. It's crazy. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video. I'm going to go back, play some more Path of Exile. If you guys enjoyed these, hit the like button, subscribe, bell notification icon, all that jazz, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.